the Sounds True Podcast Network.
What I'm saying to you is that part of going to spiritual home base is that you start treating yourself as a very awake, active, intuitive that senses your world as well as sees it.
In this episode of Insights at the Edge, we're featuring a special excerpt from medical intuitive and best-selling author Caroline Myss from the opening presentation she offered as part of Spiritual Homebase, which is a new online community where Caroline Myss serves as our spiritual director, guiding us to discover and return again and again to what she calls spiritual home base, living a faith-filled life. Stay with us. I've been in the unique position of producing more than 20 full-length audio learning programs with Caroline over the past 3 decades. Almost all of these sessions have been recorded in intimate settings with a small studio audience. And interestingly, there comes a time in almost every single recording when Caroline is talking directly to a participant, and she backpedals a little bit. Maybe they're asking about a health challenge, a relationship or family issue, a passage through a difficult time. You might even call it a dark night of the soul. And Caroline will say, "Now, if I were your spiritual director, here's what I would tell you." During this time when so many of us feel unmoored and in need of spiritual direction, Caroline Myss is the spiritual director for this new online community where all are welcome to join. You can learn more at mace.com/spiritual-homebase. That's MYSS.com/spiritual-homebase. And now here's an excerpt from Caroline Myss's opening talk, returning us to spiritual home base.
Hello to all of you, and thank you so much for being here with us tonight. I'd like to start with a blessing. I chose this particular prayer blessing because of the lecture that I have planned for this evening. May God bless us, not with clean air alone, but with the will to keep our air clean. May God bless us not with a vision of a healthy planet alone, but with the will to do all in our power to restore and maintain our planet's health. May God bless us not with a change of heart in the great world leaders alone to save our planet, but with a change in our own heart to use our own power to save the planet. May the blessing of God not bring us to saints alone, but make us saints greater than we could ever have imagined. Okay. You know, when I start to organize myself for these classes and organize my thoughts, I always think, well, I want to limit it to this, and then everything that I want to say jumps into my head and it takes off. We're going to start, as I would like to start every class, with a symbolic site report. What I mean by this is, and I'm going to talk about this later, but we are shifting so much that our symbolic instincts are waking up in a way, and the types of questions that we ask today are cosmic size, and they're not answered by ordinary intellect. So I want to take you into what I would call the observational mode. Imagine that we're all drifting off the planet just to observe. And the question is, what's going on at this time in human evolution? Not your evolution, but evolution as it's unfolding. And now, mind you, as if any of us can actually answer that question. But what we can do is adjust our perceptual system so that we cease looking for the reasons why things happen as they do, and instead look for how we can serve what is happening. So we are, as you all know, living at a time of unprecedented change, but it's the type of change that's happening that holds the clues for us. And those changes are happening both within us and around us. And if I had to kind of summarize real fast what I think is happening and make it bite-sized, I think we've reached a place in human evolution where the way we have understood life, the way we have understood ourselves, the way we have understood our own power and how we work in the world and how we work with each other and how we're connected to each other is no longer wide enough, deep enough, or truth-filled enough to sustain us for the next leg of the human experience. I think that it's not unlike when the Western world discovered that the world was round and not flat. And up until that time, the world was flat. And that was the world they knew. And their whole reality was based on it's a flat world and you fall off when you get to the edge. And that's all there's to it. Then it became round. Now, the world was always round. And that's the important part. The world was always round. But humanity lacked the wherewithal, at least in Europe, to comprehend that, to get that. And then they got it. And it changed everything. It changed navigation. It changed their understanding of wind currents, southern winds. It changed. In that same way, we have been existing in a kind of a collection of thoughts that are now kind of evaporating from how we understand God to how we understand energy to how we understand our own power. So if I've got you looking over the planet and seeing all the different kinds of changes that are happening, I think it's very tempting, very easy to say, oh, this is the fault of this person and this is the fault of that person. But in order to actually get something, imagine that you come to me for a reading and something is wrong. And you know how thorough your history is involved in your suffering. But if I just said, well, you've just got a bad headache, and took just what's happening to you right now and discounted all of that, because all of that's not in front of me, just you and your headache, and dismissed how you came to have headaches and how you came to suffer in this way and what your stress problems were, that I would have a very imbalanced and inaccurate understanding of this experience of migraine that you are having. In that same way, we have to look at all that's evolving here and ask what exactly is happening. So I'm going to give you maybe a little, my hit. I think the way the universe works is it gives us collective downloads that suddenly reshape us. And here's the thing, we don't even realize it's happening. It just gets absorbed into the collective soul. And so just as we have the internet, we have an internet. And when those downloads happen, they happen to all of us simultaneously. And I think one of the downloads that has happened, and the reason I believe this is because when we entered the nuclear age, We entered through weaponry with the intention of killing or holding the planet hostage, holding ourselves nuclearly hostage. And unfortunately, we lack the moral bandwidth to manage our appetite for destruction. We still live in the illusion that somehow if we use this nuclear force to control Iran or to control whatever, that somehow because we live over here in the United States or we live in Europe or we live wherever, that that distance will protect us from the fallout of a nuclear disaster. So distance is something I want to highlight here. But I think what the universe, it's not God's way, it's not heaven's way to suddenly send out a big message, a missive, or have apparitions that say, just stop it. The way heaven moves us is that we start craving different things. We start looking at life differently. And two things happened in the 60s. As a result, I believe, directly tied to the fact that we were so excited about our newfound power to destroy. We started to talk about how we created our own reality. Nobody pre-nuclear age would have ever even put that sentence together. Well, I create my reality. Well, right? Nobody. So it was like a mystical revelation it was a revelation of a high mystical truth. And that high mystical truth is that you actually are co-creators of the world you live in. You are co-creators. And the only way you are going to survive this very tenuous era that you're in is to evolve to a place where you become incapable of even thinking about the weaponry you have. Now, I'm going to apply that to us individually because that weaponry includes the power of our consciousness. But that's one. The next download was become whole. Become whole. Life is one. All is one. This was one of the messages of Jesus, of Buddha, that what is in one is in the whole. But we've never taken that high mystical truth and actually absorbed it or lived by it or applied it. We can speak about it. So heaven in its cleverness incarnated it into our understanding of health. That in fact, in order for us to really grapple with suffering and health and healing, we need to approach it from a holistic point of view. That we can't divide ourselves and say, well, you go to a doctor and the doctor says, you have a horrible heart condition and I have heart medicine, but it's going to blow out your kidneys, but no problem. You got two of them. I mean, nobody would say to that doctor, oh, that works for me. I'll take the risk. Instead, it's like, get the whole picture. And similarly, and this is vital to understand where we're going today, we started to include in our expanding understanding of health our psychic need, our psychology, our intellectual issues, our belief patterns, our attitudes. We finally began to say that maybe the invisible part of us has more authority than the physical part of us. Maybe, just maybe, the power, everything that has power is not physical. That the physical has the least amount of power, by far the loudest, and definitely the most destructive. But it's not the kind of power that sustains life or that creates life. So we became focused on holistic health, becoming whole, including whole. And from that came movements like the environmental movement, like all of that wiring us differently. And then came simultaneously this incredible interest in our psychic abilities. Now, nobody sat everyone down and said, does it occur to you that maybe, just maybe, all of your senses, that the next dimension of your sensory system has opened up? That in fact, part of this download, as a way of preparing for the next leg of the human journey, you need more senses than the five sensory world that you have. You have to have a hologram. You have to understand the consciousness of energy, because that's exactly what's happening. The human design has undergone the most extraordinary transition and opening of its intuitive, mystical, psychic, spiritual senses, energetic sensory system. And that is, I think, in some ways matched by how we have filled our invisible airwaves with forms of intelligence that we've never had to grapple with before, that we've never had. We have created AI. We've created, there are changes happening faster than we can comprehend them, faster than we can even say, what is the consequence of this? What will this do for us? I want to keep us floating on the observational deck so we look down, because you're able to kind of grapple with ideas when you can grab onto that idea without immediately thinking, is this destructive or productive for my life? But rather that we've reached the stage where we are advancing our way of interacting with the world around us and the world within us, how we understand ourselves. And the part of that includes that we are expanding our consciousness, but it also means that what does that mean? It means that we are expanding our sensitivities to data that we have never recognized as data before, because this is data. It's typewritten notes, not the sensory system. Through my whole career as a medical intuitive, nothing made more sense to me than doing a medical intuitive reading. It was so effortless. It was effortless. And it was effortless because I was not, I never, ever thought, not once, not one moment in my life, did I ever think that when I was a baby intuitive, that something was wrong with me. And so many of my students through the years have said, I thought something was wrong with me. I knew nothing was wrong with me. I knew that I was perceiving the world the way it was, the way it is, and that other people, and this included, by the way, listening to an angel. For another night, we'll go there. But it never occurred to me that I was the one that was off. Why? Because when I looked at how frightened adults were, how insecure, I could sense it. When I could sense that level of data around them, and I would think, why are they so frightened to be alive? Why are they so afraid of life? What is that? And in my world, that was the last thing I was afraid of life. In fact, I couldn't get enough energetic data, and nothing made more sense to me than getting downloads of information about others, about how to help others. What I realized, maybe a little early in life, was that we are intuitively wired to care for each other, the internet. Now, where are we today? I think our inner wiring is competing with our intellectual wiring. I think that our energetic anatomical system is longing to be recognized in our world and in our medical world, as well as in our spiritual world. It's time for us to start examining our energetic health with the same precision that we examine our physical health. That we need to understand how we work energetically, and we need to understand what it means to sense that we're picking up something in our airwaves. Now, just decades ago, our airwaves were not filled with energetic data. They were not filled with this constant internet, with AI, with hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of satellites up there, constantly beaming down to us. This was just filled with spiritual guidance. It was not competing with all the technological stuff. I mean, I will not have anything in my room at night, my bedroom. Like I don't have a television. I don't have computer. I won't have anything tech because I don't want anything in my airwaves. And even though that doesn't stop it, I am very much aware that our airwaves are filled with data and information. And we have yet to think of ourselves as receivers of this. So I'm going to hit a pause button here. And I called this session Breaking Through Fear because the groundwork, this overview that I'm laying, is, I think, in part, the beginning of an explanation as to why we are experiencing an epidemic of fear, but it doesn't seem to have a target. There is so much fear, anxiety, depression, addiction in our world now, just massive, massive. And in order for people to kind of deal with it, they have to target somebody. They have to say it's this, it's that, it's immigration, it's that, whatever. But it's not. No, it's not. It's the fear that we are sensing is that we know our world, our familiar world is changing. We sense it. We don't know how to language it. We don't know what change to expect. It's not like we know that the reason I have so much anxiety driving home is because they tore my street up. It's not anything like that. What we sense is that the myths that have held our world together, and we don't even sense this consciously, but we sense it because the word's gone out like another download, that somehow this call toward holism is a way that is reshaping the world we know, and that the conflicts we have are all, if we look spiritually, mystically, what they have in common, no matter what they are, is a kind of inability to recognize higher mystical truths, that a rising tide lifts all ships, that it's time for this planet to coordinate its power into a global community, not where one, if you think of it like your body, if your heart said, I'm sorry, I need to be the toughest organ in the body. I need to call the shots. I need to decide what organs in the body get food, what organs get supplies, what organs get a vaccine, what organs this, I'll decide. Instead of realizing, are you brain dead? If everybody is not taken care of, no one is taken care of. What is happening is that a whole new dimension of truth about who we are and how we function and how we need to function is unfolding, and it's unfolding within our cell tissue and it's unfolding around us. And part of that great teaching is that we are the engines of creation. Now, this is a big deal. This is a big deal because what it signals the end of God as we understand God. This is, I never thought I'd say a sentence like that, but it's part of what has become obsolete is even how we understand the nature of God. You see these mass exoduses from our churches and synagogues and da, 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 da. And what you see arisen is fundamentalism. And that always rises when people are afraid. Always. I'm going to go back to the fundamentals. Think about it when you're raising children and one of your kids comes home and all of a sudden they're speaking in ways that are just shocking to you. Maybe they've started to swear. Maybe they've started to smoke. Maybe they, who knows? But they're doing something that for you signals, whoa, 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 you're getting too old too fast. And so it's back to fundamentals. I'm taking away your phone and I'm taking away this. I need to slow down the speed at which you are progressing because it's too fast for me. So it's no surprise that we see buildups of fundamentalism, whether it's in the Nazi Party or in the fundamentalist church. It doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. If you see it, if you understand it energetically, it's the psychic force in the human experience that says, I don't want to move forward. I don't want to change. So I will devote my life force, my energy, my intellect, everything, my belief patterns to this organization that has belief patterns that are by nature like molasses, that slow the progression of human consciousness. And that's how, if you understand that, that is how you understand this rise in fundamentalism, this rise and the need to change laws in order to slow down the progress of people, make education more expensive, take away the capacity for people to progress financially. All of this, as horrendous as it is actually, if I was your spiritual director and I could take you off the planet and I say, this is what you should expect. You should expect exactly that kind of action to unfold on your planet, because you will see that there is a big faction of human consciousness that does not want to progress forward. And then there is the faction that does. And these two factions are going to collide. Now, what I learned as a medical intuitive, and I will believe this, I only come to understand this more deeply as the years of my life go by. One of the wondrous things about my skill in doing readings that it taught me was how incredibly powerful every single human being is, and how every single human being doesn't get that. They just don't get that. And there were times when I would have banged my head against a desk because there is something in our nature where we simply want the object of power and the reason for why things happen as they do to be something external that we can attack or we can control or we can talk with or we can make sign a contract or something. We simply cannot get that we are the engines of co-creation, and that every single thought we have, every single thought we have, every single one is a profound act of creation. We don't get that. It's kind of like we don't get the size of the universe either, so we just don't get it, and so we live as though we're the only life on this planet. But I'm saying to you that one of the great mystical truths that has been animated in you, and it has, is that you are participating in every act of creation, every single thing. And one of the ways we have to change our thinking, is that we used to, and I'm going to just say this is part of your homework, is to dismantle this toxic, this illusion that somehow, if we are living here, what's happening there won't affect us. No, no, and no. The truth is that in the energetic domain, which is now getting wired into our physical life through the internet, how much of your time do you spend every day plugged in to your phone or to your computer? I want you to think of this as where you focus your attention and your power is that you plug it into a world you cannot see. You can't see those satellites. You can't see anything that's operating in space, but you trust it's there. It's easier for you to trust that than it is to trust God that you can't see either, but you trust that. So you plug yourself into the energetic world. And literally, we're ushering ourselves into this energetic domain, and it's the energetic domain of us through technology, because we can touch technology, and that's fine. But what that has done, from another point of view, is it is altering our relationship to time and space and speed. And that is, oh, that's so important. How many of you have said, where is time going? Time just seems to be going so fast. Where's it going? I mean, like that. And it's because this could give you crazy. I could make you crazy tonight. That we are the ones who created a relationship with this thing that we call time. What is time? The only way we know it is by a wristwatch. And so we can measure what we call time in hours. But in fact, time is a construct of consciousness. Okay. And how we experience time is directly related to the speed at which we want to embrace truth. If you still mailed a letter to Europe, to a friend in Europe, it would take 5, 6, 8 days to get there. No, actually 2 weeks, because I do this. It would take 2 weeks to get there. And it takes 2 seconds if you use your computer. 2 seconds. Now we've changed the speed. So if I send a question to someone, it takes 2 seconds. Within an hour, I might get the answer back, and then I act on that. So my thought has turned into action in 1 hour, whereas it used to take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks. The speed at which we comprehend something changes everything. These are calculations in healing, in creation. But people, you have to get how extraordinarily powerful you are and how many of the choices you make are choices to slow down the realization of your own power. I could stay with this overview all day, but actually, I want to shift now to the application of what I'm saying to you. I am going to ask you a question, and it's a question that is worth you really reflecting on, not thinking about, but actually reflecting upon. And that's Thomas Merton. Thomas Merton once posed the question, is it possible to live the whole of your life without ever knowing the person who is living your life? So I'm going to ask that again. Is it possible to live the whole of your life without ever knowing the person who's living your life? Now, I've come across cosmic sized questions, but rarely questions that actually make me put something down and just sit there for hours. Which that question is so powerful in this era where we are emphasizing becoming conscious about ourselves, becoming conscious. What does it mean to know yourself? And if I asked you that, what would you say? If you were here in front of me and I said, what does it mean to know? How well do you know yourself? And what would you describe to me as representing the answer of knowing yourself? Would you tell me your habits? Would you tell me your occupation? But is that really knowing yourself? Teresa of Avila said, the journey to the self, it's self-knowledge is the only worthy journey to make in this life. And the only actual currency is it is really truth and love. Truth and love. What I think is happening in a greater sphere, and none of us will live to see this come to fruition, but we are living at the beginning of this tsunami of spiritual influence coming in that is meant to direct us to the creative authority of our soul. That who is living my life? What is directing me? Am I being directed? And this is like homework for you. Are you being directed by habit, or are you being directed by something from within that says, you know what, I simply want to experience being alive every day of my life? Look at the difference in that. You know, um, it, I taught sacred contracts for many years, many, many years. And right now I am deeply involved in writing a book about, it's very strange, about my own life, which is weird. Not my life so much, but the experiences that caused me to want to teach and that have influenced what I teach, because it, it's just everything to me. And I am writing the section now on archetypes, but not about what I did in sacred contracts, but rather about what is the archetypal level of consciousness about. What is that about? I mean, what is the purpose of that level of consciousness? Now, when I ask you what you know about yourself, how well do you know yourself? I am asking you to think, do I know my myths? Do I know the patterns of consciousness in this extraordinary universe that I am connected to? Do I understand why I feel compelled to teach in this lifetime? And I look at people working out in the gym and I think I would like to do that, but there isn't one part of my wiring, not one part, not even a cell, that finds working out the least bit appealing or attractive or whatever. Now I can do it. I can do it. But whereas I have one of my best friends in the universe is had deeply, deeply into yoga. goes to a yoga class every morning. And honestly, if I could send my energy to go with her, I'd do it. But for me, I'd be like, all right, I'll go with. She comes back energized and in love with it. I come back and I'm like, oh, I need some coffee. See the difference? It's not me. When I say, do you know yourself? It's to know like your archetypal patterns and even beyond that. Why do I have this pattern, but I don't have that pattern? And then when have you ever had the experience of getting to a place where you decide, I am going to accept the package my life came in. I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to diminish it. I am never again going to get up and say, is that all there is? I am the engine of this. And instead, I want to live at a higher spiritual altitude. What's that altitude? I'm going to give you another Merton. And that's this day will never come again. I know it sounds like a simple phrase, but what it means to expand your consciousness is to take something like that, this day will never come again, and actually get into the power of that teaching. I will never again see this sunset or that sunrise. I will never again have an opportunity. I may teach you again, but the elements will be different. The subject will be different. I will be different. This will never come again. Such a deep inner theology helps you to realize that every day of life is precious, precious goods. And, you know, one of the many things I learned as a medical intuitive, which blew me away, because when I started out, like so many people, I really thought that the stress and illness was caused by big events. Oh, I was abandoned. I was this, I was that. I was abducted by aliens. Who knows? Whatever. But in fact, as the years went by, I saw there was a tremendous difference between what causes us pain and what causes us suffering and what causes us to break down. And that breaking down process is because of the lack of understanding of our own power, how powerful our thoughts are, how we tell ourselves things that are not true, like there's nothing I can do about that, how we relinquish our power and authority to something outside of ourselves, like I must have approval here, I must have approval there. And I witnessed as a medical intuitive that these types of things that you would never list if your doctor said, why are you suffering? Well, because I need someone's approval and I am hemorrhaging my energy. Someday in the future, our medical profiles just might be precise enough to include our psychic archetypal activity and how that feeds into that our physical body is the caboose on the train of our life, not the engine. And what this moment is about is is that humanity is getting directed to move to the engine of their trains so that so that we start taking charge of the power of our beliefs, and in doing and understanding how powerful we are, so we can never again blame someone else for why things happen as they do. That we start listening to our intuitive nature so we get that that's guidance, because that the nature, how we must understand God, is also evolving into this vastly more extraordinary understanding, which is for centuries, we've lived with this idea of an off-planet male god, whether we're talking Allah and the Prophet Muhammad or Jesus and the Messiah and but it's an off-planet god. And except for Buddhism and Hinduism has its own version, but if we look at the Abrahamic religions, which have had such a force in forming Europe and um, the Western world, there is this sense of this off-planet God that's a being that's out there somewhere. And how many people would say to me, first of all, they're uncomfortable around the word God. Too bad, I say it all the time. And secondly, that they'll say, "Well, I know there's something, but," and they're detached, which is ex- unbelievable to me. Unbelievable. I think that whole way of understanding God is has become obsolete. It's not sufficient and it's not accurate. It doesn't what it's being replaced by is a kind of organic divinity in which we recognize that we are actually using the life force that's in this universe. And that life force is all there is. And it is this benevolent force that reveals itself as light to us, as conscious light. And that is the force that we use in our cell tissue. And that is the force that heals. And that is the force that our intuitive system speaks to. And it speaks to us intuitively. That the nature of God is love, light, and law. And I think we're evolving to a place where this very universal, impersonal understanding of the nature of God, while it is incredibly impersonal, because law is impersonal by its very nature. Gravity, you jump, you fall. There it is. And at the same time, I realized through my own spirituality, but also as a medical intuitive, that this universe is remarkably intimate. I I can't explain how any of that. All I know is what I've witnessed and what I deeply believe, and that I believe this time that we are sharing, this journey that we are sharing, is a journey toward drawing us inside so that we become more aware of this power that we are, not just have, but the power that we are. And that we start utilizing that power. We start living mystical truth, like what is in one is in the whole. What I do to the least person, I am doing to myself, I'm doing to everyone. I can't figure that out. I can't do mystical mathematics, but I try my best to live that. Meaning, I made a practice, as simple a practice as this might sound. But whenever I walk my dog, whenever I walk the hood, even today, I had to take my dog into the groomer. I walked her to the groomer. And I make it a practice to acknowledge every single person I walk by just by saying hello, hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever it is. But I don't ignore a human being anymore because I think of it now as ignoring one of my cell tissue. And I will tell you the truth. Every single person has responded, maybe not dramatically, but everyone breaks into a smile, or there's some kind of grace that is generated when you recognize another person. And this is like if shining your light upon somebody. As you come to understand and think of yourself as an active co-creative agent, a soul in a body, and that your soul is this big, so your body dwells within your soul bubble. It's not the other way around. You're growing up baby Catholic, it's always the soul somewhere in there. Maybe it's this big, maybe it's that big, who knows? When you die, it goes poof and either reaps all the rewards or it's going to go to hell. I mean, that incredible. But they were onto something, and that we are eternal beings, and that we are here on a life adventure, and that we owe it to ourselves to unravel the mystery of the power of our own life, a profound mystical mystery, and that how we decide to use our power, we are only on one journey to shift from our love of physical power to realizing the power of love, and how we can change the world through that. There's a reason why people have this burning compulsion inside of them to make a difference in the world, to be recognized in the world, to be seen, to be heard. However what that is the way our ego interprets that sense of give something to the world, make a difference. But the way our ego hears it is, oh, I've got to be seen, I've got to be noticed, I can't be ignored, da 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 da. But at a deeper level where it really matters, it's the urging of your soul to say, let me get in there and do something. All of the changes we're experiencing in this world generate a lot of fear because we know this is what we know collectively, just like we all got the message of holism, and we all get this message that somehow I'm participating in my reality. Somehow we don't think of it as co-creating the whole, we're still limiting it to ourselves. But it's time to realize, wait a minute here, I'm a participant in all of this. And it's this remarkable era that we have to take on how fear paralyzes us and how it blocks us from our two power currencies, truth and love. Truth and love. These are our power currencies. Part of the practice that I want to leave you with is I have some questions for you. I'll get them to Tami and she can send them all out to you, but they go like this. What shall I do with my life today? How shall I be of service? And when you ask a question like that, I want you to then transfer it to everything I do. I want to make everything I do of service so that you don't measure your value. You do not measure your value by what you do or what you have, or whether you are at a homeless shelter or whether you are at home working in your office. Rather, you start by realizing, I'm going to involve my soul in this. And so whatever I do it with a blessing. I do it so that it is of service to others, no matter what, no matter what, even down to I, I limit myself watching the news because I don't like the person I become when I watch the news. You wouldn't like her either. And so I think I am of greater service if I go into prayer instead of into madness. So I have begun to say, I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what's happening in the world, but it's going through a faster speed of change. And my way to participate, my way is to sit back now and just pray for the highest good everywhere. Okay. Here's another question. How shall I treat others? Do I treat others with this consciousness that I'll be held accountable for everything I think and everything I see and everything I do and every way I treat someone, and they'll be held accountable. a mystical truth is that we have to account for all the energy we use in our life. We have to account for it. There's no judgment. It's not like, oh, shame on you, Carol, you should have done this, or shame on Tami, you could have been this or that. No. That's not how it works. They're not humans. It's rather what you do with this gift of life and all the life force you use, down to the tiniest breath. We see a pixel of every single molecule of energy that was required in our life and that we used. And I want to give that to you. It's such a high mystical truth that you realize this universe is vastly enormous. Who knows how big, how good, who knows? We don't comprehend infinite. But what is absolutely true is that we're living at a profound time of revelation where we're realizing that how we understood ourselves is ferociously inadequate, that we did not include in the calculations and the descriptions of what a human being is, the energetic anatomy system, the psychic field, the energy field, the resources of the human being. We've never included in the description of life that we live in a galactic universe and that energy is just pouring in. We've never, ever included in this description of how we are designed, that we are intuitive as all get out and highly attuned to each other, and that intuitive ability we have is meant to a way for us to sense another person and then say the prayer, what do you want me to do to help them? Is there anything you want me to do to help them? Yeah. We are meant to. And you know how I this is why when I wrote Invisible Acts of Power, I mean, it blew me away because I became very attuned then, even more so than I was before, to people on the street, homeless people. But I also started to pay very close attention to the lengths at which people will not meet their eyes, not look at them, avoid any kind of contact. And why? Because they intuitively could sense that. And that's how we turn our intuition. We start monkeying around with our wiring. And what I'm saying to you is that part of going to spiritual home base is that you start treating yourself as a very awake, active, intuitive that senses your world as well as sees it. And when you feel waves of depression or anxiety, and we'll go into, you know what, the next class I do will be on psychic health, in energetic health, spiritual health practices, and that you, until I can teach more about it, just don't always assume that the energetic malaise you feel sometimes is coming from your life. You are part of an internet, and we are picking up the anxiety of the collective. So that we're going to explore that in detail in our next class. I don't even want to open that up right now. My last, I'm not done. My last is that I really ask you to have prayer time for yourself, to do something where in your heart or soul, you acknowledge that you're not alone in this universe and that you are looked after. And just keep that in mind. Okay.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I think I can say on behalf of all of us here, a huge thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, very good.
Okay.
We have people who have some terrific questions. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you so much to both of you. You have made such a huge difference in my life. So, my question or my observation is that I hemorrhage my power when I identify as a victim. And I catch myself blaming others for
Mhm,
my pain.
mhm.
And I ask myself if I want to lose my soul over this, and I say no, I don't want to, but I find that the cycle repeats and numerous
Well,
times
why do you
throughout the
think it
day.
repeats? Why do you think it repeats, Aaron? Because you must be doing something to repeat it. So what is it?
Well, I'm thinking sad thoughts. I'm thinking about have feeling like I have been betrayed. And if I'm not thinking about that, I'm criticizing myself. Um, or I'm
Okay.
feeling angry. I just catch myself in having feelings that are not they're not promoting a sense of happiness or peace.
Okay. So what you are describing in yourself, while it's your personal and very unique experience, is very common to many people. Okay. Right. That's number one. Number two, because this is an archetypal pattern, so is I would say, progression of it. And what is true is that we go through a stage where our wounded child and our victim want to be recognized for our pain. We want our pain recognized. And so we oftentimes wear it. We wear it in our mood, we wear it in our face. How are you? Oh, we wear it this way. Because the idea of saying, wait a minute, I am actually looking at them to acknowledge they betrayed me. What did they? That's if I was your spiritual director, I'd say, wait a minute here. What expectations did you have that they didn't fill? Or how did it, what you describe as a betrayal? I don't need the facts, but the details rather, but what is often the case is that when someone lets us down or we say a betrayal, we think that they got up and plotted something to just do that. We don't realize the spontaneous dynamic in other people's lives. I'll bet you anything. It was far more organic, and I'm not diminishing your pain. But what I am saying is part of the reason we don't heal is that we don't want to widen the lens and see it from a observation deck, because that means we have to forego the voice of the victim in ourselves. What we're really wanting and hoping for is people say, what's the matter? Oh my God, da 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 da. And somehow step in and start taking charge of part of your life. Do you relate to that? And never agree with me unless it feels right, ever. That's my rule. Don't you dare agree with me out of politeness.
It does. It rings true. I spend a lot of time alone, and so I'm not looking for other people to rush in and pay attention to my sadness.
Right.
And I really don't share with the people I have issues with my sadness. But and I grew up as an only child, so I have this
Yeah,
by
yeah,
myself kind of thing.
yeah,
But
yeah.
but that really hit that the people are not maybe, and I'm guessing that they're not plotting to cause me
No,
pain.
no, they're
They're
not.
just living their lives, and I'm just collateral.
And you're no, 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 you're not collateral. You are not. I'm not going to use that word. They're living their lives, but have no idea how important their lives were to you.
Okay.
Let me
Right.
rephrase
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
Had no idea how much they meant, and so if it would be possible for you to say to them, I don't know how many people, I don't know who they are, I don't know if this is a sibling, I don't know what it is, but if it was possible for you to say, I just want to tell you, you mean a lot to me. If a situation could accommodate, instead of reaching out to them with your victim, you reach out with your heart.
All right. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
I feel like I want to hug you.
Oh, thank you. Well, you have with your wisdom. I'm blown away. Really blown away. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have a written question here, Caroline. This person writes in, I grew up in a Dutch, very skeptic and Catholic household, and an image of a punishing God until I met you through Anatomy of the Spirit. What I want to ask is, how do I integrate the image of the God I grew up with one that you talk and write about all the time, the loving God?
Well, the boogeyman God, you know what? I don't know what happened to me because I grew up with that same kind of nonsense. And I one day just said, this is garbage, and just detached from it. I just detached from it. I said, this is garbage, because the only thing that made sense to me was that the energy we call love is what God feels like, and it's what God wants us to share with all life. And I am going to tell you, anytime you hear those voices from the past, and so many people struggle with that. Anytime, honest to God, close your eyes and say, shut up, and just keep going, and just say, download me with grace, God. Just download me with that wonderful grace of love. And just honestly, God is not energy, Angela. God is grace, and grace is light. And what we call energy is when we don't want to use a sacred word to describe the power of God.
Okay, next, you can turn your camera and your microphone on, and there you are. You're with us.
Hi, you.
Hi, how are you?
How are you? Oh, it's so good to see you. What can I do for you, my dear friend?
Um, this is a little bit of reference to the last class, and you talked about the bubble, and that was really great to have that image. And I could feel it. I could sense the losing of energy, and particularly with anger or power struggles or whatever. But what came up for me was the last couple weeks I've been having a lot of grief emerge. And when that grief comes, and sometimes it's connected to something that has reminded me, and then sometimes it just erupts, and I
That's
don't
right.
even
That's
know
right.
where it's coming from. But sometimes that also felt like losing energy, or more even of a collapse of the bubble. So I just wanted to ask any question
You
about
know what,
that.
honey? The dynamic, our energy field is alive and moving. And sometimes we don't know what kind of thought form can come through and pierce it. You just you have to remember that in our soul, in our bubble, all the laws of the universe are constantly working. Action and reaction, cause and effect, magnetic attraction, sensation, all the laws, constantly. We're like these sparks, and constantly sparking.
Mhm.
And sometimes we collide with other sparks,
Okay.
and sometimes we have I really believe this. We have our healing team, our angels, take advantage of our strengths to clear out a weakness. So just when we're feeling really energetic, we get blasted, and we're not sure how. But in fact, it's because we have so much strength in that moment that we could have an extraction. I'm going to describe this in much greater detail, but I also think we amass a lot of sorrow and sadness, and that it comes out in measured doses.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
You know, because I think so much we think um, that when we're sad, we have to do something. We have to do something about it. We have to remedy. And sometimes that's the case. But oftentimes there's just that sorrow and of recognizing something is finished, or something is over, or there's nothing I could do, or it was just difficult. And sometimes we simply have to cry it through.
Yes.
But it's
Okay.
wonderful. But the good thing is truly that you sense when you're hemorrhaging. Like you could feel when you're losing that power. And I always, as I will emphasize in the weeks ahead or months as we study this together, that's when you stop. You stop whatever you're doing. And you say, why do I feel this way? I feel it. My stomach's alerting me that I'm hemorrhaging, or my lower back is alerting me, or I have an ache here. So I need to just check in. What is going on here?
Right. Right.
How's your daughter?
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Okay. I'll expect a card from you.
I'm sending a letter soon. Yes.
Got it. I appreciate it. Okay. Okay.
We have another written question who writes, I'm a mother of 2 teenagers. Although they have an awareness of world religions, they've had no formal religious teaching or upbringing.
Mm.
I'm now wondering if I have facilitated a spiritual void in their lives. This is a recent concern for me after hearing about some of their peers making their confirmation.
Yeah, you did facilitate a void. I mean, there's no way to say that you did. And my counsel to you is what I would ask you if I was your spiritual director is what was your reason for not introducing your children to the idea that they were under the protection of a holy power? And if you say you're just angry, you don't believe in the church, I don't accept that. I just think, oh, come on. Even God doesn't go to church. So I no longer accept those kinds of answers as being anything more than influencing. There's nothing greater you can give kids than the power of faith, because it becomes faith in themselves and faith in their own gut instincts and faith that somehow there's a meaning and purpose to life. They don't become adults that spend the rest of their life searching for meaning and purpose because they grow up woven into it.
Well, Carolyn, just to clarify, because somebody wrote into the chat just this evening, how do I teach my 6-year-old grandson prayer?
By example, it's called habitus maximus in Latin, the maximum habits of the heart that are learned not intellectually, but they're learned through example. So pray with your grandson. Don't talk to him about it, show it.
You're next.
Okay. All right. Hello. Can you
Hi.
hear me? Hi. So my question is, you teach us about the analogy as that our body is a building and that the penthouse is where we have a higher perspective. And how can you talked about it with as far as your own ability to be not to look at the news, but how do I not plummet to the first floor
Okay.
okay.
You know, like I opened up tonight by saying the thing about going to the observation deck
Mhm.
is that it gives you a sense of an energetic flow. Like this is what humanity has to go through in order to to recalibrate, to become a more humane species. We are not humane. We are not kind to each other. We are kind one on one, but our policies and our actions and our way. So we are going through a cleansing because we simply are not living the mystical truths that we are all connected to each other. And it's so hard to endure it when we're on the ground and we look at Gaza or we look at Ukraine or we look at but I look at that and then I lean back and I say in my heart, this is your world, not mine, God. I'm here for a period of time. I will do everything I can to not participate in what makes someone want to go to war. I will do everything I can with my life, everything, to be an agent of love and change.
Hmm.
And you've put us here now because this is where we belong. And so I'm supposed to participate. And I refuse. I refuse to look and stay on the first floor and just say, oh, these horrible people. If it wasn't, because it's just not true. If it wasn't It's like an addict. When an addict needs money, they're not fussy whose purse they steal from. When a time comes to erupt, now fascism has come here. It could have gone somewhere else. It's our turn. It's not a personal universe, but
Yeah.
how we respond is personal.
Mm. Okay.
I know. But and really, and the suffering of the others, let it draw compassion from you. Let's say I can't rush to you with blankets and books and band-aids, but I from my distance am going to shine a light and let God take care and send an angel.
Thank you.
Let the angels do the work.
Okay. Okay.
All right, Carolyn, we'll make this the last live question.
I'm going to read my question because English is not my mother tongue, so I don't make many
Oh, you're
mistakes.
doing beautifully.
How can I stay calm when I'm afraid of ending up alone? I've decided not to have children, and it's hard for me to imagine being married. So I really want to be of service to people, and I meditate every day and to feel a connection with a creative or spiritual force. And I want to learn healing work also. But I mean, I'm aware that avoiding loneliness should not be my motivation for channeling an idea or saints or galactic beings or whoever. So I don't want my motivation to be that I need proof that in the end I won't be alone.
Well, I can't help with that, but I can tell you this. Have you ever taken out an advertisement to meet a good friend? Like, I need a best friend now. Did you take an ad out in the newspaper for that?
No.
Okay. Did you take an ad out in the newspaper to, are you an only child?
No.
Okay. So you didn't advertise for a sibling.
No.
Okay. I hope this is absolutely ridiculous because all the things that matter to us, you never looked for. You never looked for. So now you're looking and you're thinking, oh my God, what if this doesn't happen? What if that? What you do is like, whoa, that is just a reptile talking to me. Everything I've ever loved, everyone who's ever loved me has just shown up, And so it's like, God, you're in charge of when I meet, who I meet, what I meet. It's all yours. And I am absolutely not going to worry about it. Turn it over to God. I'm not kidding you. Because everything, and just say, I'm not going to be alone. That's preposterous. So fill my heart, God, fill my heart. And don't let it. And every time you do that, just go back to the prayer, fill my heart. Nope, not having any of that. Because that's just your insecurity talking. That's not real. And I just slap an insecurity. Don't even pay bullshit. You're not paying attention to that. You're going to say, you nuts. I have this great life. I've got all this to give. Heaven's not going to waste you, darling. Heaven's not going to waste any part of you.
That's beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you. Carolyn, you ready for one more written question and then take us home? This one, I think it's a good one as you end, which is someone wrote in, becoming impersonal and detached feels like becoming non-caring.
Oh, I know everyone thinks that. That's absolute nonsense. Impersonal, we don't have the right word for it. But what it means is that you're looking at an illusion and you're saying, I'm on to you. You're an illusion. So what would be an equivalent? It would be if you've ever listened to anyone tell you a story and you knew for a fact it wasn't true. It just wasn't true. And so as you listen to what or someone's trying to sell you something saying this is the most wonderful thing, and you just like, let them talk. But you don't buy it. You don't buy it. It doesn't attach to you. It's not personal, and it doesn't even feel like you're not caring. It's just that what you are experiencing is that none of your energy has gotten wrapped around something. That's what it means to be impersonal. It means, I always say to my students when I'm teaching, how many of you want my pen? And they laugh. But I want the example to be as foolish as that, so that they have a memory of what it's like to have an impersonal relationship with my pen. It's not even that they don't care. It's just that the pen has not attracted their energy in any way. So they, whether I put the pen here or there, doesn't matter to them. And that's the power of impersonal. It's not that you don't care. It's that you don't give it power.
All right, Carolyn,
All right. I want to end with
with a
something
prayer.
delicious. This is Homebase. Ever since happiness heard your name, it's been running through the streets trying to find you. And several times in the last week, God Himself has even come to my door asking me for your address. Once I said, God, I thought you knew everything. Why are you asking me where your lovers live? And the beloved replied, Indeed, Habas, I do know everything, but it's fun playing dumb once in a while, and I love intimate chat and the warmth of your heart's fire. Maybe we should make this poem into a song and a prayer. I think it has potential. How does this refrain sound? For I know it is truth. Ever since happiness heard your name, it's been running through the streets trying to find you, and several times in the last week, God Himself came to my door, so sweetly asking for your address, wanting the warmth of your heart's fire. Isn't that yummy?
It is. It is. What you said, Carolyn, to the last person about heaven's not going to waste you or waste any of us. I could feel that reverberating in all the Zoom squares.
Oh, I just think that's beautiful. This work means so much to me that I talked Tami into letting me have an evening with all of you just for your questions. So I'm going to teach one class, and then a couple of weeks later we'll do the questions, and it'll just be me dialoguing with you, and then the next class. So if this getting to home base, getting you to where you never ever have to question your value or your purpose, that to me is worth a good life.
Very well. Thank you, friends. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, sweetie.
You've been listening to New York Times bestselling author and medical intuitive Caroline Myss, an excerpt from her opening presentation as an offering to the new spiritual Homebase online community. Each month, Caroline presents 2 live sessions, including practices, prayers. She answers live questions and answers. Spiritual Homebase is a resource, a community designed for the accelerated time of change that we're in. People are participating from all over the world, and you can learn more and join us at mace.com/spiritual-homebase. That's MYSS.com/spiritual-homebase. I hope to see you there. The Sounds True Podcast Network.